The sun burned crimson through the haze of smoke and ash that had become Kepler Sigma 4's atmosphere. From his observation deck in the planet's last functioning command center, Colonel Aris Venn watched another settlement fall to the relentless advance of the enemy. The holographic display before him cast ghostly blue reflections across his weathered face as red warning indicators flashed across the map. Another defensive position overrun. 3 weeks, he muttered, running fingers through graying hair that had seen far too little maintenance since the invasion began. 3 weeks since our first distress call, and still nothing. His executive officer, Major Lyra, approached with a data tablet. The lines etched around her eyes had deepened considerably over the past weeks. The agricultural district in Sector 7 has gone dark, sir. That's another 50,000 civilians we can't account for. Venn absorbed the information with a tight nod. Kepler Sigma 4 had once been the pride of this star system, a lush agricultural world blessed with mineral wealth and temperate climate. Now it was becoming a wasteland. Sector by sector, as the crystalline entities known as the Shard methodically consumed everything in their path. "Any word from our listening posts?" he asked, knowing the answer before Lyra shook her head. "Nothing substantial. The same interference patterns. They're using something to disrupt our long-range communications." The Shard had appeared without warning 3 weeks ago, a swarm of geometric, crystalline vessels that defied conventional physics. Their attack strategy was unlike anything in the Defense Force's tactical database. They didn't bomb cities or target military installations first. They established processing nodes, bioconversion facilities that transformed organic matter into more of themselves, more Shard. "The outer colonies are completely overrun," Lyra continued, swiping through grim casualty reports. "We've lost contact with the mining outposts on the moons." "And the civilian evacuation?" Venn asked, his voice carefully controlled despite knowing the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "We've moved about 60% of the remaining population to the underground shelters in the capital region. The rest, she didn't need to finish. The rest were either already consumed by the Shard or trapped in regions where rescue was impossible." Venn turned from the tactical display to the viewport that looked out over Capital City, the last major urban center still under their control. Once gleaming towers now stood partially collapsed or burning. The atmospheric disturbances created by the Shard's technology had turned the sky a perpetual rust red, with lightning occasionally crackling between unnatural cloud formations. "Colonel!" The communication officer's voice cut through the command center. "We're receiving a transmission. It's from the Liaris Alliance." The room fell silent. The Liaris Alliance, the coalition of 17 spacefaring species that maintained order across this sector of the galaxy, was their last hope. When the Shard attack began, Sigma 4 had broadcast emergency distress signals on all frequencies, pleading for intervention from the Alliance. "Put it through," Venn ordered, straightening his uniform jacket by reflex as he moved to the central communications platform. The holographic projector flickered to life, resolving into the image of a Liaris dignitary, tall, with the characteristic crest of elongated cranial plates that distinguished their species. The alien wore formal diplomatic attire, which struck Venn as oddly inappropriate given the circumstances. "People of Kepler Sigma 4, I am High Emissary Talaren of the Liaris Diplomatic Corps. We have received your distress signals and are deeply concerned about the situation on your world." Venn exchanged glances with Lyra. There was something in the emissary's tone that didn't match the urgency of their plight. "The Alliance Council has met in emergency session," Talaren continued, "and we have authorized immediate humanitarian relief. Medical ships and supplies are being assembled as we speak. Additionally, we are sending scientific observers to study this Shard phenomenon you've reported." "Scientific observers?" Venn couldn't contain himself. "Emissary, we need military intervention. The Shard are consuming our planet. Our defense forces are overwhelmed." Talaran's expression shifted slightly, the Liaris equivalent of discomfort. "Colonel Venn, I understand your distress. The Liaris Alliance is fundamentally a peaceful coalition. Our charter prevents us from engaging in military action except under the most extreme circumstances and with unanimous consent of all member worlds. And this doesn't qualify as extreme. Ven gestured to the viewport behind him, where the distant flashes of shard conversion facilities illuminated the horizon. We are gathering more information, Talaren replied smoothly. Our medical ships will arrive to assist with civilian casualties, and our diplomatic corps is attempting to establish communication with these entities. They don't communicate. Ven's composure finally cracked. They consume, they convert. They don't respond to any transmission we've sent. Nevertheless, we must try peaceful resolution first. It is the Liaris way. I assure you, relief is coming. Please stand by for coordinates to establish a humanitarian corridor. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. They're sending medical ships, Lyra finally said, her voice hollow with disbelief. To a planetary invasion. Ven turned back to the tactical display, his mind racing. How long until these relief ships arrive? The communications officer consulted his station. Based on their transmitted coordinates and velocity, approximately 4 days, sir. We may not have 4 days, muttered the defense coordinator from her station. The shard's conversion rate is accelerating. At current progression, they'll reach the capital's outer districts within 72 hours. Ven made a decision. Send this message to all remaining defense outposts. Fall back to the capital. We consolidate our forces around the civilian shelters and the spaceport. If the Liaris are only sending medical ships, we need to ensure there are still people alive for them to treat when they arrive. As his officers acknowledged the orders, Ven returned to the viewport, watching the distant flashes that marked the shard's advance. He'd seen war before, border conflicts, pirate raids, even a short-lived rebellion on one of the outer colonies. But this was different. This wasn't war. This was extinction. We're on our own, he said quietly to himself. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us. The next 48 hours brought nothing but retreats and defeats. The Shard continued their inexorable advance toward the capital, their crystalline structures growing ever larger as they consumed more of the planet's resources. Ven had deployed every available defensive asset, orbital platforms, ground-based energy batteries, even civilian mining equipment repurposed as weapons, but nothing seemed to slow the enemy's progress. Dr. Callow Rem, Sigma 4's leading xenobiologist, had established a research station in the command center's lower levels. The doctor's team had been working around the clock to understand the Shard's biology and potential weaknesses. They're not entirely crystalline, Dr. Rem explained during an emergency briefing. Dark circles under his eyes testament to days without sleep. The crystal structures are more like exoskeletons or armor. Inside, they appear to be comprised of a plasma-like substance that serves as both their nervous system and energy source. Have you found any vulnerabilities? Ven asked. Cutting to the chase, Dr. Rem ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Possibly. Their conversion process requires tremendous energy. When they're actively converting matter, the plasma core becomes more exposed as they channel power to their conversion appendages. A precisely targeted strike during that moment might disrupt their structural integrity. How precisely targeted? That's the problem, Rem admitted. We'd need to hit them with concentrated energy weapons within a 2-second window when their core is exposed. And even then, only at specific junction points in their crystalline structure. Ven turned to his weapons officer. Can we modify our remaining defense batteries to deliver that kind of precision strike? We can try, sir, but our energy weapons weren't designed for that level of targeting precision. And we'd have to get dangerously close to observe the conversion process up close. It was a suicide mission, but they were running out of options. Ven authorized a special operations team to attempt a targeted strike against a smaller Shard entity on the outskirts of the capital. 6 hours later, the team was gone, consumed by the very shard they had attempted to destroy. As the 72-hour mark approached, Ven received more devastating news. The communications officer approached with visible distress. "Sir, we've just received another transmission from the Lyraris Alliance." "Put it through," Ven ordered, already dreading what was coming. High Emissary Talaren appeared once again, his formal demeanor unchanged. "Colonel Ven, I regret to inform you that there has been a complication with our relief mission. Our ships report that the Shard have established a spatial disruption field around your system that makes conventional approach impossible." "You're saying you can't reach us?" Ven asked, ice forming in his stomach. "Not at present. Our vessels are holding position at the edge of your star system while our scientists develop a method to safely navigate through the disruption field. I must inform you that this may delay our arrival indefinitely." Ven clenched his fists. "And what do you suggest we do in the meantime? Emissary, the Shard will reach our capital within hours." Talaren's expression remained maddeningly calm. "Continue your defensive efforts. Colonel, the Alliance believes in your resilience. We will continue seeking a diplomatic solution while our scientists work on the technical challenges." The transmission ended before Ven could respond, which was perhaps fortunate given the string of profanities that erupted from him. "They're abandoning us," Lyra said quietly. "They never intended to engage militarily." "We need to face reality," Ven said after composing himself. "No help is coming. We're on our own." He turned to his tactical officer. "What assets do we still have operational?" 3 orbital defense platforms with functioning weapons systems, though they're low on energy reserves. 17 ground-based defense batteries around the capital perimeter, a squadron of atmospheric fighters, 12 craft, though fuel is critically low, and approximately 800 Defense Force personnel still combat effective, against an enemy that numbered in the millions and grew with every acre of planet they consumed. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted again. "We're picking up another signal. It's not Lyraris." Ven frowned. "Source?" "Unknown, sir. It's appearing at the edge of our detection range, just beyond the moon's orbit." "Is it Shard?" "No, sir. The signature is completely different. It appears to be a fleet." "A fleet?" Ven moved quickly to the detection console. "Show me." The screen displayed a cluster of signatures, dozens, perhaps hundreds of vessels emerging from what appeared to be artificial jump points at the edge of the system. "Are they responding to communication attempts?" "Not yet, sir, but they're not broadcasting on any known Lyraris frequencies either." Ven felt the first flicker of hope he'd experienced in days. "Keep trying all frequencies. If someone else has come to help, we need to—" "Sir!" The tactical officer's voice cut through the command center. "The unidentified fleet is moving. They're accelerating toward the planet at high velocity." "Projected intercept?" Ven demanded. "At current speed, less than 40 minutes, sir." 40 minutes. The Shard would reach the capital's outer defenses in approximately 3 hours. Whatever this new fleet was, they would arrive first. "All personnel to battle stations," Ven ordered. "Power up whatever defensive systems we have left. Until we know who these newcomers are, we treat them as potential hostiles." The next 35 minutes passed in tense anticipation. The communications officer continued broadcasting greeting messages on all frequencies, but the approaching fleet maintained silence. The tactical display showed them forming into what appeared to be attack formations as they pushed through the outer system. 5 minutes to atmospheric entry," the tactical officer announced. "They're not slowing down, sir." Ven made a difficult decision. "Target the lead vessels with our remaining orbital platforms. If they don't respond to communication in the next 2 minutes, we fire warning shots." "Sir," the communications officer suddenly called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's text only." "Put it on screen," Ven ordered. The message that appeared was brief and in a standard trade language used throughout this sector of the galaxy. "Kepler, Sigma-4 Defense Command. This is Terra Nova Battle Group 7. Stand by for immediate combat operations against hostile entities. Clear all defensive firing solutions. Weapons free in 3 minutes. Terra Nova, Lyra read aloud. Earth, the humans have come? Ven felt a complex mixture of emotions wash over him. Earth, humanity's homeworld, had a reputation throughout the galaxy, but it was a complicated one. Unlike the Lyra's alliance with its emphasis on diplomacy and careful deliberation, Earth's interstellar policy was often characterized as aggressive and unilateral. They weren't members of the alliance, having declined invitation decades ago in favor of maintaining their independence. "Sir, do we stand down our defenses?" the tactical officer asked. Ven hesitated only briefly. "Yes, clear all targeting solutions, and send this reply. Terra Nova Battle Group, this is Sigma-4 Defense Command. We welcome your assistance. Be advised, shard entities are approaching our capital from the southern hemisphere." The reply came almost instantly. "Acknowledged. Maintain position. Preserve your remaining assets. We will engage." As the message disappeared from the screen, the fleet entered Sigma-4's upper atmosphere, and for the first time, they could see the vessels through the planet's remaining surveillance systems. The sight took Ven's breath away. These weren't the sleek, aesthetically pleasing ships of the Lyra's alliance with their curved hulls and artistic design elements. The Terra Nova vessels were angular, utilitarian, and bristling with weapon systems. Their hulls bore the scars of previous engagements, patched and repaired rather than replaced. Ships that had seen combat and survived. The battle group moved with precision that spoke of extensive military training, spreading out into a complex three-dimensional formation that Ven recognized as designed to maximize firing lanes while minimizing friendly fire risks. "How many vessels?" he asked quietly. "We count 117 distinct signatures, sir," replied the tactical officer, awe evident in her voice. "Multiple classes. One appears to be a carrier-type vessel. The others are..." Never seen configurations like these. A new transmission appeared on screen. "Initiating Operation Sunder. All Terra Nova units. Weapons free. Repeat, weapons free." What followed would be seared into Ven's memory for the remainder of his life. The Terra Nova ships opened fire simultaneously, unleashing weapons technologies that Sigma-4's sensors could barely classify. High-energy particle beams sliced through the atmosphere with surgical precision, targeting the shard conversion nodes that had been identified by Sigma-4's defense force. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds punched through the largest shard entities, shattering their crystalline structures. The carrier vessel launched squadrons of smaller craft, fighters that moved with impossible agility, darting between the shard formations and delivering precision strikes against the plasma cores that Dr. Rem had identified as their vulnerable point. "They knew," Ven whispered as he watched the tactical display. "They already knew the shard's weaknesses." The battle raged across the southern hemisphere, the Terra Nova forces methodically dismantling the shard advance with ruthless efficiency. What Sigma-4's defense force had failed to accomplish in 3 weeks, the Earth fleet was achieving in minutes. "Sir," Lyra said, staring at the tactical display in disbelief, "the shard are retreating. They're abandoning their conversion nodes and attempting to regroup." "They've never retreated before," Ven replied, equally stunned. "We've never been able to inflict enough damage to force them to reassess." A new message appeared on screen. "Phase 1 complete. Initiating ground deployment. Request coordination with local forces." Ven didn't hesitate. "Respond with, 'We'll coordinate. Standing by to receive your troops.'" Within minutes, transport vessels were descending toward the capital's spaceport. As they landed, ramps extended and disgorged hundreds of armored soldiers. Their equipment was unlike anything Ven had seen before, powered armor suits that enhanced their natural capabilities. weapons that hummed with barely contained energy, and support units that included both robotic assistants and what appeared to be biomechanical constructs. A soldier approached the command center, removing her helmet as she entered. Colonel Linara Shen was not what Ven had expected. She was shorter than him by at least a head, with features that suggested East Asian ancestry from Earth's ancient genetic lineages. Her hair was cropped short for practical combat purposes, and a thin scar ran from her left temple to her jaw, the kind that spoke of a wound serious enough that even advanced medicine had left a mark. "Colonel Ven?" she asked, extending a gloved hand in the human custom of greeting. "Colonel Linara Shen, 7th Expeditionary Force, Terra Nova Defense Command." Ven clasped her hand, finding her grip firm and confident. "Colonel Shen, your arrival is timely." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "We received your distress call 3 weeks ago. It took us some time to assemble the battle group and calculate the jump coordinates. The Lyares Alliance said they couldn't penetrate the spatial disruption field created by the Shard," Ven said, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. Shen's expression hardened slightly. "Yes, we encountered it. We pushed through. Pushed through. How? Brute force, essentially. The disruption field is designed to deflect conventional approach vectors. We calculated its resonance frequency and matched our shield harmonics to create a temporary corridor." She shrugged as if this were a minor technical detail. "It cost us 3 ships and damaged a dozen more. But we got through." Ven was stunned by the casual mention of such losses. "3 ships? Colonel, They were unmanned advance vessels," Shen clarified. "Sacrificial probes to map the field's parameters. Standard procedure for unknown barrier penetration." She moved to the tactical display, studying the current situation. "Now, I need everything you have on the Shard's ground presence. My people are engaging them across the southern continent, but we need to coordinate with your forces to ensure we're not missing any pockets of resistance." The next several hours were a blur of activity as the human forces methodically dismantled the Shard presence on Kepler Sigma 4. Colonel Shen's troops moved with practiced efficiency, clearing sector after sector with minimal casualties. The tactics they employed suggested they had encountered the Shard or something similar before, though Shen deflected Ven's questions on this point. "Let's focus on the current situation," she said when he pressed her. "We can discuss interstellar politics and information-sharing protocols after your world is secure." By the end of the day, the Shard had been pushed back from the capital region entirely. The conversion nodes had been destroyed with targeted energy weapons, and the scattered remaining Shard entities were being hunted down by specialized Terra Nova units. "How is this possible?" Dr. Rem asked when he joined Ven in the command center after inspecting the remains of a Shard entity brought in by the human forces. "We struggled for weeks, and they've resolved the situation in hours. They came prepared for war," Ven replied simply. "The Lyares were preparing for a relief mission. There's a fundamental difference in approach." As night fell over the battered capital, Colonel Shen returned to the command center, now accompanied by several of her officers and what appeared to be medical personnel. "The southern hemisphere is secure," she reported. "We've established a defensive perimeter around the remaining Shard concentrations in the northern polar region. They'll be neutralized by morning." She gestured to the medical team. "In the meantime, I've brought our field surgeons to assist with your wounded. They have experience treating the kinds of injuries the Shard inflict." Ven nodded gratefully. "Our medical facilities are overwhelmed. Any help is welcome." He hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "Colonel Shen, why did Earth respond to our distress call? We have no formal alliance, no treaties." Shen removed her tactical gloves, revealing hands covered in the same adaptive nanomaterial as her armor. "Do we need a treaty to respond when lives are in danger? Colonel, the distress call was clear. You were under attack by a hostile force that threatened your entire population." "The Lyares Alliance had the same information," Ven pointed out. The Liaris Alliance and Earth have different perspectives on interstellar intervention, Shen replied diplomatically. They believe in careful consensus building and graduated response. We believe that when a civilization faces extinction, the time for committee meetings has passed. Before Ven could respond, the communications officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from, and it's the Liaris Alliance again. Ven exchanged glances with Shen, whose expression had become carefully neutral. Put it through, he ordered. High Emissary Talleyrand appeared once more, though his composure seemed slightly rattled. Colonel Ven, our sensors indicate significant military activity in the Kepler-Sigma system. We are concerned about... The emissary stopped abruptly as he noticed Colonel Shen standing beside Ven. Is that... Are those Earth forces on Sigma-4? Yes, emissary, Ven confirmed. The Terra Nova battle group arrived approximately 12 hours ago. They've engaged the Shard and have nearly eliminated the threat. Talleyrand's expression cycled through several emotions before settling into something resembling diplomatic concern. Colonel Ven, while we appreciate any assistance in this crisis, I must express the Alliance's grave concerns about unauthorized military operations within our sphere of influence. Earth is not a signatory to the Mutual Defense and Non-Aggression Pact that governs this sector. Colonel Shen stepped forward. Emissary Talleyrand, Colonel Linara Shen of Terra Nova Defense Command. My battle group responded to a legitimate distress call from a world under imminent threat of extinction. Our intervention was conducted under Article 7 of the Galactic Humanitarian Charter, which Earth has ratified even though we are not Alliance members. Colonel Shen, Talleyrand replied stiffly. The Alliance was already responding to the situation with appropriate measures. Medical ships? Shen interrupted, her tone remaining professional but with an undercurrent of steel. For a planetary invasion, with respect, emissary. Your response was inadequate to the threat level. The Shard had consumed nearly 40% of this world's biomass by the time we arrived. Talleyrand straightened, his cranial plates shifting in what Ven recognized as a sign of agitation. The Alliance Council will need to discuss this unilateral action. In the meantime, we are dispatching diplomatic observers to assess the situation. They're welcome to observe, Shen replied coolly. From a safe distance, the combat zone remains dangerous, and we cannot guarantee their safety if they interfere with ongoing operations. After the transmission ended, Ven turned to Shen. You've made an enemy of the Liaris Alliance. Shen shrugged. Not an enemy. A slightly annoyed bureaucratic entity that will send strongly worded communications for the next few months before moving on to the next crisis. She smiled faintly. This isn't our first intervention in Alliance space. Colonel, they protest. We apologize for any diplomatic awkwardness while pointing out the lives saved. And eventually, everyone moves forward. And Sigma-4? What happens to us after you eliminate the Shard? That depends on what you want, Shen replied. Earth doesn't colonize or annex. We intervene. We assist with reconstruction, and we offer partnership if desired. Your world remains sovereign. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the tactical station. Sir, Colonel Shen, we're detecting multiple jump signatures at the edge of the system. Both colonels moved quickly to the display. Shard reinforcements? Ven asked, feeling his stomach drop. No, the tactical officer replied. The energy signatures match. Liaris vessels, a lot of them. The screen displayed dozens of ships emerging from hyperspace, the distinctive curved hulls of Liaris Alliance vessels. Well, Shen said dryly, it seems the Alliance has found a way through the disruption field after all. Remarkable timing. A transmission came through immediately, and High Emissary Talleyrand appeared once more. Colonel Ven, the Alliance fleet has successfully developed countermeasures to the spatial disruption. We are proceeding to Sigma-4 with medical and reconstruction assets, as promised. Thank you, Emissary. Ven replied carefully. As you're aware, The Terra Nova forces have already engaged the Shard. The threat is nearly neutralized. Talleyrand's expression remained professionally neutral. Nevertheless, we will proceed as planned to provide humanitarian assistance. The Alliance doesn't abandon its protectorates. Colonel, after the transmission ended, Shen turned to Ven with a raised eyebrow. Protectorates? A diplomatic term, Ven explained. Sigma-4 isn't formally part of the Alliance, but we're within their recognized sphere of influence. Shen nodded thoughtfully. I see. Well, additional medical support will be welcome, regardless of its motivation. My forces will continue combat operations until the Shard are eliminated. As dawn broke the following day, the last of the Shard entities were being systematically destroyed by Terra Nova strike teams. The Lyra's fleet had established position in high orbit, dispatching medical vessels to the surface while maintaining a conspicuous distance from the human ships. Colonel Shen met with Ven in what remained of the capital's central plaza, now a makeshift command post for the ground operations. The northern concentrations have been neutralized, she reported. We're conducting final sweeps, but I believe we can declare your world secure. Ven looked out over the devastated cityscape. Smoke still rose from damaged buildings, and the signs of battle were everywhere. But for the first time in weeks, there was no sound of weapons fire, no screams of the injured. The silence was almost disconcerting after so much chaos. What happens now? He asked. Now comes the harder part, Shen replied. Rebuilding. She gestured to where human medical teams were working alongside the newly arrived Lyris physicians, treating the wounded in field hospitals. My engineers are already assessing critical infrastructure, power generation, water purification, food distribution. We'll get the basics running again within days. And the Lyris? Shen's expression remained neutral. They're focusing on medical relief, which is what they do best. Their physicians are skilled, and their medical technology is excellent. We're coordinating efforts to avoid duplication. A Lyris official approached, wearing the insignia of their medical corps. He nodded respectfully to Ven before addressing Shen. Colonel, our teams have identified additional wounded in the Eastern District. We're dispatching hover ambulances, but the terrain is difficult to navigate with our equipment. I'll assign a squad of our terrain specialists to guide your teams. Shen replied without hesitation. They can clear a path through the debris. The Lyra's official seemed momentarily surprised by the immediate offer of assistance, then nodded gratefully. That would be most helpful. Thank you, Colonel. As he departed, Shen turned back to Ven. We work together where we can. The politics can wait until the people are safe. Over the next several days, an uneasy cooperation developed between the Terra Nova forces and the Lyris relief mission. The humans focused on security, infrastructure repair, and hunting down any remaining Shard fragments, while the Lyris excelled at medical care and the psychological support of traumatized civilians. High Emissary Talleyrand eventually visited the surface, meeting with both Ven and Shen in a formal diplomatic capacity. The conversation was strained but professional, with the emissary expressing both gratitude for Earth's intervention and carefully worded concerns about protocol violations. The Alliance Council will be reviewing our response protocols, Talleyrand acknowledged toward the end of the meeting. There are those who feel our caution may have laid necessary action. It was as close to an admission of error as Ven expected from the Lyris, who prided themselves on deliberative process. Perhaps our different approaches can complement each other in future crises, Shen suggested diplomatically. Earth's rapid response capabilities paired with the Alliance's reconstruction expertise. Talleyrand's cranial plates shifted in what might have been thoughtful consideration. Perhaps that would require formal channels of communication and joint protocols that don't currently exist. Then maybe it's time to create them. Ven interjected, because from where I stand, from where my people stand, the combination of both your efforts is what saved this world. As the emissary departed, Shen turned to Ven with a small smile. "Diplomatic of you. I've learned something about diplomacy these past days." Ven replied, "Sometimes it requires acknowledging uncomfortable truths, and sometimes it requires strategic omissions." "And which was that?" "Both. I think—" Ven looked out over the plaza, where human soldiers and Liaris medical personnel were working side by side. "The uncomfortable truth is that we needed both of you. Earth's willingness to engage directly and the Alliance's healing touch afterward. The strategic omission is that if you hadn't come first, there would have been no one left to heal. 1 week after the Terra Nova battle group's arrival, Kepler Sigma 4 was beginning to recover. The Shard had been completely eradicated, with specialized teams sweeping every corner of the planet to ensure no fragments remained to regenerate. Power had been restored to the capital and major population centers, and water purification systems were operational again. The human vessels remained in orbit, though their number had decreased as some returned to Earth space. Their combat duties complete. The Liaris fleet had expanded as additional relief ships arrived, bringing supplies and reconstruction specialists. Colonel Shen found Ven at the memorial that had been established at the edge of the central plaza, a simple monument to those lost in the invasion. She approached quietly, respecting his moment of reflection. "We'll be departing tomorrow," she said after a suitable pause. "The security situation is stable, and the Liaris have committed sufficient resources for the reconstruction effort." Ven nodded, still looking at the memorial. "My people will never forget what Earth did for us." "It's what anyone should have done," Shen replied simply. "But not what everyone would do," Ven countered, finally turning to face her. "There's a difference between should and would that matters greatly when survival is at stake." Shen acknowledged this with a slight inclination of her head. "My government has authorized me to offer a formal defense treaty with Kepler Sigma 4. Not annexation or protectorate status, a partnership between equals. Earth would provide military training, defense technology, and rapid response guarantees in exchange for trading rights and a small military outpost in your system." "The Liaris won't like that," Ven observed. "No," Shen agreed with a small smile. "They won't, but they'll accept it, because the alternative is watching more worlds in their sphere of influence turn to Earth for security while they debate the ethical implications of intervention." Ven considered the offer. "I'm not authorized to accept such a treaty. Our planetary council will need to debate and vote." "Of course. There's no rush." Shen reached into a pocket of her uniform and withdrew a small metallic object, a communication device of advanced design. "This connects directly to Terra Nova Command. If you ever need us again, you won't need to wait for a distress call to be debated in committee." Ven accepted the device, feeling its weight in his palm, a tangible symbol of Earth's commitment. "Thank you, Colonel." As Shen prepared to depart, Ven had one final question. "The Shard, have you encountered them before? Your forces seem to know exactly how to fight them." Shen paused, considering her answer carefully. "Not the Shard specifically. No, but similar entities exist in other sectors of the galaxy. Earth has experience with threats that consume rather than communicate." Something darker flickered across her expression momentarily. "We've learned that some threats cannot be negotiated with, no matter how sincerely one desires peaceful resolution." The following day, Ven stood with his officers and a delegation of planetary officials as the Terra Nova forces prepared for departure. The human soldiers boarded their transports with the same efficiency they had displayed in combat, their mission complete. Colonel Shen offered a formal salute before boarding the last transport. "It has been an honor, Colonel Ven." Ven returned the salute, then extended his hand in the human gesture of farewell. "The honor is ours, Colonel Shen. Kepler Sigma 4 stands because of Earth's courage." As the human vessels lifted from the surface and rejoined their battle group in orbit, Ven watched with a mixture of gratitude and reflection. The sky above was clearing, the unnatural rust red giving way to the natural blue as the atmospheric disturbances created by the shard faded. A Liaris official approached, watching the departing ships. "They are not what I expected," he admitted. "The stories we hear about humans are perhaps incomplete." Ven finished for him, as are many stories told from a distance. In the days that followed, Ven drafted a formal message to be transmitted to Earth's government, a message of thanks, but also of recognition. The experience had fundamentally changed his understanding of what true assistance meant in a time of crisis. Sometimes, help didn't arrive in the form you expected. Sometimes, it came with weapons drawn and a willingness to fight battles others deemed too dangerous to engage. And sometimes, that was exactly the help you needed. The final paragraph of his message read, "In our darkest hour, when diplomatic promises failed to materialize into tangible aid, it was Earth that answered our call with decisive action. The people of Kepler Sigma 4 will never forget that when extinction loomed, humanity did not debate. They acted. From this day forward, let it be known throughout the galaxy that Earth and Sigma 4 stand as allies, bound not by political convenience but by the shared conviction that the defense of innocent life transcends all other considerations. We have witnessed firsthand the true meaning of the human phrase, 'Actions speak louder than words,' and we find ourselves in profound agreement." As Ven transmitted the message, he gazed up at the stars becoming visible in the evening sky. Somewhere out there, the Terra Nova battle group was returning to Earth, perhaps already responding to another distress call, another world in need. The Liaris Alliance would continue its deliberative approach to galactic crises, and there was value in such caution. But Ven and his people had learned a vital lesson when extinction threatened, when every moment meant more lives lost. Sometimes the help you needed wasn't the help you expected. Sometimes what you needed wasn't a diplomatic mission promising eventual relief. Sometimes what you needed was Earth's fleet arriving with weapons free.